Good evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends. And I can see that everyone's being a little crazy today, but that's good because being crazy is really what life is about. Today we are talking about what is the name of the show today, the topic, Jeanne, and then I'll finish with
choosing to be joyous.
Choosing to be joyous. Now, guys, I have been watching a lot of Abraham Hicks, maybe more than anyone should watch at one time. And we all go through our ups and downs, and Abraham calls them contrasts. And today, the contrast that I decided to do was the positive contrast. Sometimes you get caught in the negative and sometimes you get caught in the positive, but it's best to be caught in the positive. Now, let me just tell you quickly, I now have a new Patreon page and I got my very first donation, much more than I had expected it to be. And someone this morning said, I signed up and you will get donations from me starting on January. So I got thrilled about that. But there was something that was sort of bothering me, and I was kind of in that state, And then all of a sudden, a switch happened. I said to myself, why am I thinking like this? It's not getting me anywhere. In fact, not only is it not getting me anywhere, it's pulling me down. It happened more easily than I'm saying. And I switched from that negative to the positive. Now, guys, this has lasted a few hours now. The point is, what we say to ourselves is more important than what we say to anyone else. It's what we think about ourselves and how we are thinking that creates our world. Now, it's up to you to decide how you're going to think. And I see that right now, Jeanne is about to pop in and talk. But before I do that, I want to tell you I have Kimi Avary back and Victor back. And you guys have seen me with them before. And Jeanne is kind of a permanent fixture for now. Allison did tell me recently she will be back, but Jeanne is not going anywhere. We'll have two permanent fixtures. And with that, Jeanne, you know what I need to do. I'm going to go do it.
First, I'd like to have Victor and Kimi join me in celebrating this momentous occasion with your switch. Yay! The reason it's important to celebrate when we do something like this, which, Carla, I know is not as easy as you make it sound, is that we celebrate the things that work and we realize that it was actually easier than we thought it was.
Yes.
Sometimes we just need to choose. And that's why we thought of choosing to be joyous. That puts us in the active role. And I have some great quotes that will show kind of we just need to choose. Whoop, there I am. I love when I get repeated. Just get to choose. That's a great thing to keep repeating. From Henry Nguyen, who's a Dutch theologian, he wrote, joy does not simply happen to us. We have to choose joy and keep choosing it every day. Now, I find this very important because the power of choice is critical to who we are, to who we show up in the world. Now, Paul Coelho, the great author, wrote, we can't choose our lives, but we can decide what to do with the joys or the griefs we're given. In other words, when I read that, I was like, know what you can control and know what you can't. Let go of what you can't and enjoy what you can. So that's where choice comes in, knowing what you can control and knowing what you can't. So that if there's something difficult that you can't control, you deal with it and you move to what you can and be joyous. And the third one is from an author and personal life coach, Craig Lunsbrough. And he wrote, we have a choice. We can be jaded by what we've lost, or joyous over that thing, over what that thing had accomplished while we had it. And when I read that, I thought, that's kind of what I do when I talk to folks about what's the lesson that we've learned. You know, looking for what was good in whatever it was that happened. You know, we've lost a lot of people this year for a lot of reasons, but the pandemic is held a lot. And I have talked with several of my friends and loved ones, and the question that when they're in that space of grieving and they don't want me to just listen, they're kind of pushing me to talk and to act with them, I ask, what were the things that made you so happy with this person? And we start talking about those happy moments and those lessons learned from that person. And that changes, you know, it doesn't change the grief because we have to feel the grief, but it changes our outlook. So by the time we're done with the conversation, we're on a little bit of a happier note, because I value that everybody has to go through grief, but grief has lessons. Difficult times have lessons. But the most important lesson comes from Stephen Covey when he writes, between stimulus and response, you get to choose. And I take that a little farther. I say, you get to choose heaven or hell. You get to choose calm or calamity. I choose calm. I choose heaven. I choose joy. Kimi, you're nodding your head?
Yeah, it is a daily choice. And what you just said, I nodded when you were saying, well, I was nodding throughout everything you were saying, but specifically, you can choose heaven or hell right here. And it's up to you. And your body believes everything you're thinking. And when you're coming from a place of fear and worry and doubt and not choosing to be present in the moment in joy, your body feels it. You feel sick to your stomach or shaky or whatever. Those physiological responses are created through your thinking. And you can turn that around by being intentional, knowing that you have a choice. Most people don't realize that they even have a choice to change how they're thinking. And it's like a muscle that when you turn things around, when you choose to think, to look for things that make you happy, that bring you joy, that allow you to feel connected with all there is, and things manifest from that place. And I say manifest because whatever you're feeling, you're actually going to end up feeling more of that. It gets it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It will get bigger and bigger and bigger. So when you take in yourself from a place of, oh, I'm feeling worried or sad, and you turn and look at something in a new way and celebrate it, just like you were saying earlier at the beginning of this call, is celebrating it is a big deal. And every time you do it, your body's going to go, oh, that feels good. I like that. I want more of that. And then you end up attracting more, because who doesn't want to be around somebody who is uplifted and looking at the world through the eyes of possibility rather than worry and fear? It's a choice.
It is. Victor.
Yes.
I know you want to weigh in. I can tell. You always smile big.
Well, this is what I do all the time, and I encourage everyone to teach other people, teach everyone, share this idea. One concept I have been, I guess, wrestling with is this notion that we have of being inclusive. Now, being inclusive, maybe I got the wrong idea about being inclusive, but everyone has the choice that we're talking about. The best choice that we can make now is, what am I going to think about for the next minute? And our choices determine how we feel. Our choices determine the joy that we are experiencing. And the only person that's responsible for my joy is me. The only person responsible for your joy is you. The only person responsible for anyone's joy is that person. However, if I got this notion of inclusivity properly, we are helping other people to feel a part of whatever it is that we're concerned with. And certainly being a part of something is a human condition, and we all want community, and we all want to be a part of something. But being a part of something that's not me is simply gravy, for in the analogy. Because see, being me is exceptional in itself. Living in this body is wonderful. Having this mind is off the charts. And the one thing that I want to do is to share this mind with other people. It's easier to be Victor, and it's easier to think my thoughts when my thoughts don't bother anyone. It's easier to think my thoughts when more people think like me. Not think what I think, but think like me, in that what I think about, I bring about. The notion of love, I think, is misunderstood by some folks, because I've heard many people, in fact, the Dalai Lama has been quoted as saying people need to be loved. And while that's true on a peripheral sense, there's more to the story, because bigger than our need to be loved is our need to actually love. And love is an act of our will. That's something that we choose to do. And even the people that we are loving, they have the same mandate. They are called to love. Now, as human beings begin to examine whether anybody loves them or whether they're feeling loved, it seems to me that they may be victimizing themselves, because it doesn't so much matter if you love me. What matters to me is that I love you. And whether or not I love you, that's my choice. Whether or not you love me is your choice. And whether or not I can accept the fact that you may not love me, that's my choice. And my word, my brand, view attitudes. View attitudes is another way of saying the mind, because if you change your view, you can change your attitude. And if your attitude is that you need anything that you don't have, then I want to encourage you to change your attitude. So talking about joy and choosing to have joy is someplace where I spend most of my time, because for a lot of my life I didn't have joy. For a lot of my life I was having a tough time. For a lot of my life I used to have what they call a kill list. And I now realize that, well, I've been kind of monopolizing things, which I tend to do. And see, monopolizing things is some of the things that cause other people to feel offended. So I'm going to stop for now, because I'm not sure that everybody here has mastered the art of not being offended, because one thing I can guarantee you, I'm not going to get offended no matter what you do.
Victor?
Back to you.
Victor, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how you are so aware of the world, but I don't think anybody on this panel is going to be offended, because we've talked about stuff like this before. You have a message that's really broad and really also specific, and I have two things I want to share. One is, everybody has a way of changing their perspective or their view. And we have what I call my personal portable perspective machine. And it's something.
We all have one.
Yeah, well, you have two, actually. God gave us two so we could repeat, or we don't, And it's basically, it's this. everybody has a hand. You hold it out and you say, Victor, what do you see? And Victor, you'll say the palm of your hand. Oftentimes I have to coach people and say, be more specific, because they say hand. But you see the palm of my hand, I see the back of my hand. And when I flip it around, we're seeing the same thing, but you get to see the back, I get to see the front. It's the same hand. And when we start to look even sideways, I love doing the profile, because when we start to look at things from different angles, we see different details. And when we see those different details, it's easier for us to expand our mind about whatever those details illustrate. So a lot of times people talk to me about how dark things are, and I kind of look at them, I go, you know what? I draw. And if I didn't use darkness, my drawings would be just flat. You know, and the example is you draw a circle on a piece of paper, and then you take your pencil and you go to the left side and you start to shade it in, and it's really dark, and then you kind of bring it out so it's lighter, lighter, lighter. And after doing that for a while, your circle becomes a sphere. Or you do it with the box. When you start to shade in parts of a box, your box can become a cube. The shading, the darkness, makes it three-dimensional. And your eye says, okay, this has more depth to it. So some of that darkness is there to teach us lessons. And when we learn that there's a lesson in there, then we can tolerate it a little bit better. You know, I've done a lot of work with several people on how to integrate that. You know, being one with your light and your darkness. And I always come back to drawing the sphere. It's the first thing I taught my grandkids about drawing, was you have to start to do a little bit of shading. You know, it teaches us something, and it makes us better at supporting those around us when we can integrate that. So do I have tough times? You betcha. But did I learn from tough times? That's the question. And when you learn,
You betcha.
when you learn, it's easier to handle the next time and the next time. And then somebody comes to you and say, how do you do it? And you go, do what? They go, how do you handle things with such grace and aplomb? And, you know, when somebody asked me that during a certain difficult time, I kind of skewed my face a little bit. And it's like, what are you coming from? And then I thought about it, and I wasn't pulling my hair out and screaming and doing what I used to do when I was in my 20s, because that's what I thought I needed to do. Now I'm a little bit older than 20, and I know how to take a deep breath, how to step back and say, okay, what do we do? You know, and that's what we do when it comes into a crisis. You step back, you take inventory, and you say, okay, what do we do? And you fix it. You know, so that's the one thing I wanted to react. And the other is, you talked about joy supporting you, and it doesn't matter what I think, it only matters what you think. And that's beautiful, because that changes how we react in the world when we say, it's not to me what Kimi thinks of me. That's Kimi's business. Kimi can think whatever she wants about me. That's all on her. What's my business is what I think of me. And when you work with that, especially in a meditation, you'll have those moments where it's like, boom, because all of a sudden your responsibility to control somebody else goes away. Because I have a secret. We can't control anybody else. Even my child was not controllable. And it wasn't until I realized that, when he was growing up, I realized I can set boundaries, but his job was to push the boundaries. You know, and then I became a little bit easier to live with, because as a teenager, he and I had our battles, but I got to pick the battles a little bit more strategically, because I realized, you know what I expect, you know what I want, and from here on out, the consequences are yours. And when I said that to him, we had a completely different relationship because I had to follow through. If he did something and there were consequences, those were his. And that took some of his power to control me away because I set a different boundary. It's beautiful when it happens. And I wish I could have read a book that said, live life this way way, way long ago. But I think I had to go through the trials and tribulations to be able to understand what I'm talking about today.
Well,
Carla,
that's an interesting aspect.
Go ahead.
Am I hogging the conversation? Because I'm
Nope.
Say it and I'll talk. It's okay.
the struggles you're talking about. You said you wish you had a book, and I'm suggesting that having a book or having a roadmap to tell you how to get to where you are might not actually be in your best interest. There's a story about a little boy who was watching a worm metamorphose into a butterfly. The cocoon was built, and as the worm is making its metamorphosis and becoming a butterfly, is trying to get out of the web like thing and that he's in, so that he can go and he can fly away and be a butterfly. Well, the little boy saw the struggle, and he took a little branch, and he's trying to help the worm get out of the cocoon by tearing it open. And what eventually happened is, instead of turning into a butterfly, the worm died. And someone was sharing with the little boy what he had actually done and how things really work. It is by struggling through the cocoon, it's by trying to get out of the cocoon, that the worm develops the strength and the ability necessary to become a butterfly. And that's designed for the worm to do alone. So if the worm is thwarted from struggling to get out of the cocoon, well, it is not strong enough to sustain life as a butterfly. So for those of us who have struggled through life, and I've struggled quite a bit, and I'm really pretty strong, pretty okay right now. But you get the idea, like, we are all strong in our own way. All of us are living life from inside to outside. And if we hadn't had the experiences that we did, I doubt that we would be the people that we are. And many people have intimated that, boy, I wish I knew this before. But I'm suggesting that things happen exactly as they ought. And people who haven't had struggles might not see the merit in that, but those of us who have had the struggles, we can see it right off.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you. And I just, it's like there should be a parenting manual, but how I parented my child is going to be different than how Kimi would parent her child, because we have different experiences and different backgrounds. And our kids are all unique, but I learned a lot raising my son without the parenting manual. So I agree with you. It is those struggles. It's finding the lessons in the struggles that can bring us joy. I remember doing a gratitude workshop with a bunch of high school kids once, and they paired up the adult people that were there to do it too. And the kids were kind of having fun with it, but the adults, we were bawling our eyes out because they asked us to find a time when we were really angry, and the partner was going to be that person you're really angry with, and you just let loose and give it a few minutes of just telling them everything you need to tell them, and then come around and say thank you. And it wasn't easy. You see, there were probably 12 adults there, and we were just bawling our eyes out because there's pent up anger, there's pent up hurt, there's pent up whatever it is that we logged into. It was clearly, the kids were kind of laughing watching us. But I remember I obviously picked my ex-husband because I was still a bit, worked up with that. And at the end, I said, thank you. And the person working with me goes, what are you thankful for? And I said, if I didn't go through this dark tunnel, if I didn't go through everything that we went through together, I wouldn't be coming out at this point with understanding what the loving light of Christ is, or understanding, who I am, or, recognizing that I actually needed help and going to get the help. So those three things helped move me forward. But until I went through that crisis of going through the divorce, I wouldn't have seen it. Because to be honest with you, I didn't understand. My experience had never been through anything like that. So I was in this exercise thanking the person I was most angry with for putting me through, one of the things in my life that was the most painful. Okay, it wasn't as painful physically as childbirth, but it was painful. But I couldn't have been fired, gone through the kiln, if you will, to become who I am today. And that started a very long journey, which changed me at the very cellular level. But I didn't know it at the time. And that's when I said earlier about finding the lessons in those dark places. It's really important to have that perspective, to see how you've grown. Kimi, I see you chomping at the bit, and then Carla.
Well, can I just very quickly, someone in the chat said mistakes are pieces of advice. You must have to see it that way. And when you see a mistake, it's just that moment, that's all it is. You can take one thing and you can say, oh, I'm the most horrible person because I made these mistakes. Or you could see it as a stepping stone for growth. I say that all the time in the English show. Come, make your mistakes. That's how you learn. And yesterday we had a really funny example. Someone was saying, wanted to say television, and every time he said it, I heard terrorism. Oh. And I'm like, ooh. What is this? What are you saying? So luckily, Huang was there, and Huang was able to tell me what he was saying. And we took time to teach him how to say television instead of television. But the point is, he wouldn't have had a chance to learn it if he hadn't made the mistake. He came in, he spoke in English. He's just beginning to feel good about that. And he's from Vietnam. And we laughed at it because I said, this is great. You learned something new, and I learned something new about television, But that's the whole point. And if we choose it with joy and as if we're learning something, it doesn't matter. But many times we choose it saying, oh, I'm so dumb, I couldn't say it correctly. That's not the point. You're not dumb, you're learning. And any question is a learning experience. There is nothing dumb about asking something. There is nothing dumb by saying, I don't know. There's something dumb if you stay quiet and you nod your head and you have no idea what we're saying. And there was someone, again, on the English show yesterday, who I said, you need to use your ears and stop speaking. And he kept on speaking and speaking and speaking. And I said, no. And I was really patient in the beginning. And at the end, I was like, this is a waste of time. You are not listening. And for other people, they're learning something from it. But you are not, because you're not taking a moment to listen. You're taking a moment to just talk and talk and talk. And that's not what a conversation is about. And I just went on a whole tangent. Kimi, you wanted to talk before I stay on my tangent.
Well, one thing that's coming up that I think is really interesting. We can be afraid of how people will perceive us. Right. When you are practicing English or learning to enhance your vocabulary, you have to practice. And you can tell people who are practicing because they're going to say some of the new words that they've read or heard, maybe not correctly right away. The first time may not come out perfectly. And you'll never learn how to say that word if you don't practice it. We are often afraid of how people will view us. It keeps us from doing many, many, many things in our lives. It keeps us from being joyous. It keeps us from stepping out of our comfort zone and trying something new. It keeps us from looking outwardly and seeing the flowers or the puppies or the kitty cats or the smiles. Because we're too busy looking in, afraid of judgment, afraid of criticism. And I think a lot of this stems from our instinctual experience. I work a lot with men and women to help them to understand each other better. And the masculine, this could be a woman or a man, whoever's in masculine mode is this provider, protector, producer energy. Who's ever in feminine mode is a supporter, adapter, enhancer energy. Again, that could be a man or a woman. And whichever mode you're in, you're more likely to be influenced by the people around you. As a woman, we are influenced by the energetic field of the people around us. For instance, your baby's crying, it's hungry. If we were only self-referenced in our own head, in a masculine mode, not to say men would do this, but a woman who is feeling the energy of the baby crying because they're hungry is going to adapt to that child, is going to look for food for that child. We are externally motivated. We tend to care about how people perceive us. And part of that is that we are aware of the nuances, the experiences of being with other people. We want to please people. We want to make them happy. And this whole conversation that we're having underscores, really highlights the fact that happiness is an inside job. It's up to us to choose how we want to be. And it's often easier from a masculine's perspective to say, I choose this no matter what's going on around me. I'm going to be happy. Now, in both contexts, neither one's right or wrong. If there wasn't somebody adapting to our little babies in the world, we probably wouldn't be around. Babies would die, right? So we want that energy to be able to pick up energy in the field, around us. And the person who can hold their energy and really choose how they want to feel and stay with that, that's a superpower too. Both ways of being are important. And when we take a moment and choose how we want to be, we get to impact people in a deeper, more rich, more full way, because our energy will impact them. And again, it's their choice. Are they going to pick up on it or not? Have you ever walked into a room and somebody's really angry and you can start to feel down? You can be the person who people walk in the room and they want to be around. You can be that person too. It's up to you. And one of the things that's so important is it's your choice. We don't often think we have a choice, but we do. Even how you, not even, I'll say it this way, how you sit, the postures you take, where you look, how you carry yourself, that will impact how you feel on the inside. You have a choice. And everything that we experience gives us new information to choose again. Everything is here to help us. Everything. The seeming good and the seeming bad. There's an old Chinese story about a farmer and his son and a horse. And yeah, and this, the boy's out riding his horse and he comes back one day and 1,000 other horses follow him. And the neighbors come by this old man's house and they say, "Oh, you are so blessed. You have these horses. You are so lucky. You are the amazing. God's blessed you." And the next day his horse is out riding, or the son is out riding one of the horses, and he falls and he breaks his leg. And his son, or the neighbors come by and say, "This is so tragic. Your son, he broke his leg." And the next day, all the Chinese military come and they take all the horses and all the boys from the village except for his son. And each time the old man said, "Perhaps, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe the horses were a blessing. Maybe my son's falling was a curse. Perhaps, we'll see." We never know what's going to happen. So we can choose now how we can make a choice on how we're going to feel about it. It's up to us.
Yeah, that's a very good story, and it has lots of nuances. For me specifically, what I got from that story is characterizing an action, characterizing an event as good or bad can be premature until you figure out the end of the story. And the story that Kimi just told, is that a good story or is it a bad story? Well, it kind of depends on when you came in the story. But many of us will take an event. Many of the other people will take an event and they'll characterize it as a horrible thing. But the good news is you don't want to characterize the story until you know the end of the story. And each of us has the ability to create the end of the story. So we create whatever ending we want, and a good ending is going to put us in a different place mentally than a bad ending. If you are running a marathon and you know somehow that you're going to win this marathon, you just know it, and here you know it, and you know you're going to win this marathon. If you were to twist your ankle during the running of that marathon, you're not really worried about the fact that you twisted your ankle or that your ankle hurts, because you know you're going to win the marathon. If it starts raining while you're running that marathon, same situation. Doesn't make any difference to you that it's raining, because you already know in here that you're going to win the marathon. So whatever inner concept we have, whatever ideas that we have, and all this is really an elaborate little system that's created by our subconscious mind as opposed to the rest of the world, but we can choose to have a fantastic ending. And once we choose that we have a fantastic ending, we create events along the way that supports that choice. And I get pretty juiced just thinking about this whole thing because I mentioned a kill list earlier. I used to have a list in my mind of people that had hurt me so bad. They had done me so horrible that if I wanted to kill them in the vilest, most disgusting way, then I was justified to do it. And I could just kill them. I could put a horse on each one of their limbs and pull them apart. And it would be good for how bad they hurt me. But alas, they didn't hurt me. It was the creation that I had in here that made me feel as though they hurt me. So if everyone has the ability to do that, let's help people leverage that ability. Let's help, the panel discussion that we're having now, this goes on every day in my life, in my head, and anybody that dares have a conversation with me, they're going to have some of this experience. Because this is not a sometime thing for me. This is something I'm thinking all the time. It's something I'm present to all the time. And it has to be, because for a long time, until I decided that Jesus Christ was my Lord and Savior, it was a long time that I was governed by stuff that happened outside of me. But the choice is ours. We can choose the outcome. And okay. This is Carla's show, isn't it?
No. Finish what you're saying, and then I'll.
So basically, just alluding to the story that you told, don't make a call on the story until you know the end of the story, and you can know the end of the story by creating it yourself. And who among us is going to create a bad ending if it's our call? Well, I'm certainly not. So I think it's going to be great. I think I'm going to win, and I'm going to be surrounded by other people who win also.
Okay, Victor. Now, are you done?
I'm never done, Carla, but I'm done for now.
Okay, I know you're not done, but I just didn't want to interrupt again. What you say is so very important. I know myself, and I think everyone knows that, or has moments where you think, oh no, that issue that's going on for me is so bad and it's not going to work. And we focus on what we don't want instead of focusing on what we want. And believe me, I go between the two. Today, I'm probably more stable on the focusing on the better part than I was yesterday. But the point, we make our own choices. We make our own choices on how to even survive. And I want to ask that everyone check out my YouTube channel, Giggle Fest University. And if you want, my Patreon page, my new Patreon page, Giggle Lady. But the reason I mention that is, for me, that what I just did was very difficult. I'm not used to promoting myself. I'm not used to putting myself first. And I just did it because, one, Jeannie reminded me, but
Congratulations.
But I decided to do it today because I wanted to make sure that people know you can help in many different ways. And sometimes people help very much on the scene, and you see these people helping right now by being here. And there are other people who help behind the scenes. But when it comes to the end of the day, if we choose what we have and we're happy with what we have, those horses are going to follow us. If we choose worrying about what we don't have, then no one's going to be around us because they don't want to know about what we can't do. Everyone wants to know about what we can do. And thank you so very much, guys, for being here. We're not done. Whoever wants to follow me, just follow. Begin talking.
I think that the message is clear about the power of choice and the power to change the filter that we look at things with. I believe it was 2 weeks ago, I was talking with somebody on the panel and kind of relating to how I like to have rose-colored glasses from the old classic story, where I don't remember the whole story, and I'm going to have to go back and read it. But what I do remember is this person saw everything positively, and people were trying to get it at her because she saw everything with rose-colored glasses. Well, I like to look at things with rose-colored glasses. I like to find that positive stuff because I don't like being in that depressed, angry state. I want to see when I feel that what I'm gonna color as negative kind of emotions, but not in the bad way. Just they're not positive. It's like on the battery, you have the positive and the negative poles. So I don't want to put any judgment on it, but I want to be able to know when I have one of those emotions where I'm a little angry. I know there's something else that's causing that, so I need to deal with it. Versus I'm really elated. I'm holding my granddaughter and I am just in heaven. I want that to be more the regular. So I like rose-colored glasses. I also like blue filtered glasses because I'm on the computer all the time and I know it saves my eyes. But how we see things in the world, how we interpret it, is critical for us to make the choice to be happy, to be joyous. How we see somebody yelling at us, and I'm sure every single person has probably had somebody yell at them this week. And I remember it wasn't that long ago, somebody was yelling at me. And I was thinking, I could be really, really nasty right now. The kind of thing I want to say is really nasty, but I'm not going to do it. So instead, I said something a little bit more skewered for humor, let's say, and this person looked really crazy. They went from 0 to 60 in a flash, and I was kind of taken aback. I had no idea why they were angry. So I smiled. I took a deep breath and I said, "So did your meds just kick in?" Which made them kind of go back like this, because it was just so out of character. So I find that I have this kind of crazy humor that most people don't get. I understand, but that helped me out of what could have been a very difficult situation. And when I feel when somebody starts yelling at me, I feel like I'm that 4-year-old kid in the house who just, knocked over the fishbowl, and mom's yelling, because why wouldn't she? You just knocked over the fishbowl. There's a big mess. You don't understand. The fish is going to die. All this stuff. I remember hearing, when my mother would get angry, and you go right to that same point, which means I need to deal with that inner child at 4 years old and let go of some things that I held on to for many years. See how I didn't have to admit to how old I am there, Kimi? Just wanted to highlight that. But that's what we get when we start to look at what's happening. Is your anger in your stomach? Are you feeling like you're not secure and you get that funny feeling? I've learned to pay attention to that funny feeling. Twice in my life, somebody's tried to break into the house I was in. And both times I had this really strange kind of cramping and upset in my stomach. Just, something is off, but I didn't understand it. I was a little bit too young for it. I was babysitting the first time, and I woke up just before the person tried to climb in the window. And my reactions were such that it scared this person away. Thank God. But, and the second time we had a really long holiday weekend. So I think I was like 15. I was passed out and I woke up. I remember saying that the Martians were coming because the person who was breaking in was actually, long story short, my brother's friend, and he'd opened the window and he was trying to wake me up thinking I was my brother. So I said, Dad, the Martians are coming in the window. And my father thought I had lost it. But both times scared the holy heavens out of me, you know, and both times I'd had that feeling and I didn't know. So now I know when I have that feeling, it's because there's danger. There's something I need to be aware of. So I've trained myself. So when I'm in a situation where somebody's really angry with me, I'm trying to figure out where in my body am I reacting, because there's a lesson of how to let go of something. And if somebody really feels like they have to scream and yell at me, I'm figuring that's more on them than me. And then I say, you know, when you're calm, we'll talk about this. It's another thing I learned raising my son. When you're calm, we'll talk about this. When you're calm. About the fourth time, my son would go, oh, you know, and then he would walk away because I wanted him to be calm. But I would look at, how am I reacting? And that's where the choice is. How am I reacting? Am I reacting emotionally, chaotically, crazily, or am I responding deliberately, thoughtfully, lovingly? I choose to respond. I choose to respond. And you keep saying that, I choose to respond. It's not really rose-colored glasses anymore. It's life glasses, which I need new
You
ones
know,
on.
one of the barriers to choosing joy is getting chewed out. Really, when someone's chewing you out. Now, I've developed a strategy. It's a foolproof strategy to manage getting chewed out. I
This
mean,
is,
it's worked for years, and it'll work for any of us.
hang on.
But it's
I
a,
want to
but
put
it's a
quotes
little
here.
involved.
I want to make sure we highlight this. You know, what is the key, Victor, to when somebody's chewing you out? What is it that you do? Okay,
It's a strategy. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to do it. And I don't think we have 3 or 4 minutes left.
go ahead.
But
We've got it. I want the strategy.
okay, all right. First of all, you have to embrace the fact that no one on the planet has the right to chew you out about anything. So anybody that's chewing you out is misinformed because they don't get to chew you out. The second thing you have to embrace is that even though nobody has the right to chew you out, there's some people who actually think that they do and they will chew you out. Now, while you are getting chewed out, there's no need to try to defend yourself because that just inflames the situation you're trying to defend yourself. So accept the fact, number three, that you're getting chewed out. Just accept that. While you are being chewed out, in here, there's different things that can go on that you choose to make go on. So what I suggest is that while you're being chewed out, you internally rate the person on the different aspects of the chew out, on their sincerity. How sincere are they being, right? You rate them on their use of vocabulary. How good is their vocabulary? You rate them on their righteous indignation. How righteous do they feel about what they're doing? You do all this from 0 to 10. You give them a rating, or oh, man, that's pretty. He's really using some good words, and you give them that, right? And at the end of the chew out, you give them an overall rating in your head. Because see, what they're saying really is not that important because they're reacting to the voices in their head that's making them think that they can chew you out. And so that's their problem, right? And after you give them that overall rating in your head, you just rely on that. And at the end of a chew out, there's really only one response. There's one response that cannot be attacked, that cannot be worsened. And that response is plainly and simply, hey, you know what? I'm terribly sorry. I'll do better next time. When you say I'm terribly sorry and you sort of take the responsibility for whatever it is that they're chewing you out for, I'm terribly sorry and I'll do better next time. What else can they say except, Oh, okay. And the chew out is over. You didn't carry the pain of it all. You didn't absorb anything, and they feel better because they responded to that idiocy in their head. And I assure you, if you will embrace that, the next time you get chewed out, you might even find yourself having a comedy moment, because the guy that shared this with me told me that at the end of one of his chewing out, instead of giving the rating in his head and saying, "I'm terribly sorry, I won't do that again," he was so caught up in his rating because the guy was getting such high numbers. Once the guy got done chewing him out, instead of him doing what he was supposed to do, he says, "Man, you know what? That's the best chewing out that I've gotten this year. You did a really great job of chewing me out." And of course, the person who was chewing him out, I mean, they were taken surprise, and they had to bust out laughing too. So that's what I call my method of managing the chew out.
I think that that's important, because Carla started us with the voices in our head and how we can be harder on ourselves than anybody ever can. So if we can give the voices a job of rating the person chewing us out, that would be great. And I'm just picturing Carrie Ann Inaba in Dancing with the Stars going 8.8.
Yeah. I mean, and they're chewing you out because they can't help it. Now, I haven't chewed anybody out in years. I've given up the habit because, I learned that whatever I'm feeling, I'm the one that's feeling it. And the majority of the time, the things about others that offend us, they're not trying to offend us, because human beings aren't made to drive wedges between other human beings unless they're hurt. And if someone's chewing me out, they're hurt. And if they're hurt, I'm going to help them as much as I can. And I don't help them by responding to what they're saying as though it's the truth.
So I kind of hear responsibility and accountability coming through. Is that true?
Well, I'm responsible for whatever it is I think. I'm responsible for whatever it is I feel. And if I give that responsibility to somebody who's chewing me out, then I'm misplaced. If I'm not part of the solution, then if I'm not part of the problem, I can't be part of the solution. So the way I'm feeling, if and when I'm getting chewed out, that's on me. Many of us have heard the saying that how you feel about me is none of my business. Well, that's really true. That's really true. So if you feel like you got to chew me out, then you have to deal with the voices in your head, because I assure you, I'm going to deal with the voices in my head.
Yeah. I think that's great. Kimi, you got that look.
No, I'm just thinking, I mean, nothing anybody ever does is your business, in the sense that, it's their stuff going on in their head. And when somebody's yelling at us and the repercussions are that it's coming right at you, you can set up energetic boundaries also. I love the scoring system. I thought that was super fun, because, it's like, what can you do? Well, you can occupy your brain doing that. And I do an exercise with people called the sunlight keeps changing. Sorry, everybody. Metaphorical boundaries, where we imagine trying on different boundaries. And it came from a story my brother told me about sitting with my grandmother at her round table when she was drinking whiskey.
Ooh.
And I said, "Doesn't she upset you?" And he said, "No, I just imagine myself in a glass egg and her little fiery darts just bounce off." Just imagine myself in a glass egg and her little, oh dear. Oh my God. So that is one way to do it. I have had clients imagine they have a saw blade. If you ever hold a stainless steel piece in it, and if you bend it, it will go boing, boing, boing. So somebody's negative words are coming right at you, and you just say boing, boing, boing. And it's stupid, and it's funny, and it's silly and playful. There are things that you can do to turn the energy of a situation around. And if you can't, I like the rating system. You could also say, thank you. Thank you. And that way it's sort of, there's nowhere to go from there. Somebody's given you the information, you didn't let it land on your heart. Maybe you heard it, you want to figure out what you want to do with the information. And it's important sometimes to listen to the person who's actually upset, especially if they're your partner. Because the more you don't listen, the more the rage will escalate. So to put that in there, it's important to be curious and listen and to learn about what your partner's needs are. Now that's a whole different conversation, but in your relationships, it is important for us to care about what our partner is experiencing. And of course, their experience and their mindset is their own business. It's not yours. However, showing caring and learning about what they're experiencing so you can maybe help support them in making better choices, that's good. But again, people are going to feel what they're going to feel. It's not our job to fix it. It's our job to maybe, if we've chosen to be in a relationship with them, to listen, to learn, to care, because sometimes just that will make all the difference. And I know we're a little bit over time, so go on. I'm passing.
Well, actually, we started a little late, and I like this conversation, so I'm not quickly ending it, although I should. People in the audience are loving this today, and I've been answering them in a little. But the important thing is, I think we all, until we begin to understand this and expand our mind back into our hearts and understanding who we are, we listen to what comes from outside. And what comes from outside keeps us from being able to learn and grow. And I really feel that everyone, excluding no one, needs to begin taking their inner self more, I can't think of the word I want to use, but more clearly and trusting ourselves instead of looking for, oh, mom told me this, I need to do what mom told me. Or my best friend said this, and I don't think it's a great idea, but maybe I should do it because that person said it. We need to begin to trust ourselves more. And the more we trust ourselves, the more we're going to grow. Victor, last words, because we are over, but I want everyone a chance to say something.
I can just close with saying we are far more powerful than we know. Right. We have so much more control over our world than we know. And if you do not agree with that, I urge you to find an outside objective person to help you realize how that's true. Because no matter what I say or what I do, ultimately, you are the one that decide what's going to come in. And ultimately, what comes in is going to impact how you see things. And the paradox is the way that you see things, that's going to determine how you see whatever comes in. So really and truly, you really got to spend a lot more time with yourself, do a lot more spiritual investigation, and find out and understand that however it is you show up, you're the one that's showing up, and it's not my fault.
And, I remember maybe a week or two ago, I was kind of upset about something and I was talking to you. And you said, you need to believe that everything's going to work out. And I was like, how can I believe that now? But yeah, it'll work out. And come to think of it, it does happen the more you believe it. And Kimi, I know you have something great to say.
Well, I like to think, number one, I was thinking of this earlier. If it's going to be funny later in a story, it's funny now. I don't care what's happening. There are things that are going to be funny later when you tell the story. So I like to change the perspective on that. I always like to listen for what I can learn here. What opportunity is this? I ask myself those questions. What am I getting out of this situation? Even if it seems like it's like completely falling apart. It's a miserable situation. I'm devastated. And it's about pivoting your attention to what you want to focus on. There's a story I've told before, and I'll try and tell it really fast, where my father and I, who had a very rocky relationship, came into the kitchen in the morning on a holiday. It must have been last month because it was Thanksgiving. And he yelled at me saying, "You've got to get out of the kitchen because your brother's going to come and cook dinner." Well, my brother and I were scheduled to cook dinner. And I thought, oh, this is just like it's always been. I can't believe I'm here. Why am I even spending time with him? It was pretty rocky with him. And instead of saying anything in that moment, I locked myself in the bathroom. And I thought, what is it that I truly want to experience today? That's such an important question to ask yourself. What do I actually want to experience? And I wanted to experience love and connection with my family. My mother had passed away, and this was our first Thanksgiving together since that time. And I meditated on that because I asked myself that question. I focused my attention on feeling love and being love and what I wanted to experience. So much so that when I walked out of the bathroom, I didn't think to say, "Oh, Dad, you were being a jerk." I didn't say that. I walked out and I was radiating the love that I wanted to experience. And I laid my head that night down on the pillow that night, feeling like and thinking to myself, this is the best Thanksgiving I've had in a long time. I was so thrilled, but it had everything to do with my setting my intention. So that's my final word.
It has to do with how we think. Jeanne?
It reminds me of something we were talking about just the other day, and it's that you get what you pray from, not what you pray for. So putting yourself at that higher vibration before you start to send out messages to the universe is really important. And you illustrated it, Carla, at the beginning when you talked about how you switched, from feeling kind of ugh to feeling much more happy and joyous, and things started to fall into place. And Kimi, you just illustrated it, how you took what could have been a really difficult family story, and I've been in those kind of family stories, believe me, and you took the time to explore and make the switch knowingly. You went in to do it. So Carla's happened kind of candidly, if you will, kind of on the spot, and yours was knowingly going in and making it happen. So those two are very important skills that I want to call out, because that puts you in the place from to be when you say, I am prosperous, I am loving, I am joyous. I am is very powerful phrase. I am whatever it is that you want to be. So get into that space. I am joyous. I choose to be joyous. I have to go work hard at my job, and I know it's going to be a drudge, but I'm going to enjoy every bit of it. Okay, that's not quite there. Now I've turned it around and go, I love my job. We can change it, but I also like to keep a little bit of reality, because that keeps us grounded. So the last thing I want to do is to remind people that when we breathe deeply, when we breathe all the way to the bottom of our abdomen and down into our toes, we can't be stressed. We move out of the fight or flight back here into the frontal lobe, which is more logical, and you can't be stressed. And when you can't be stressed, you can choose joy more easily. And that's what I want everybody to do during this crazy holiday. You know, we may not be able to be with all of our family still. We may not be able to do all the things that we thought we could. We may think that we never see normal again. Well, in reality, there never really was a normal, because normal is different for everybody. It's like common sense. It's not really common. So our normal is changing. We got to live with it. We change our perspective and say, I can live with it. I can find what works for me. I can be a joyous beacon in this world. And that alone will change how our perspective and our perceptions are. And then we can pray from a joyous place.
Yeah.
First of all, that is awesome. And there's someone who had said for each person that you spoke, boy, that's awesome, Victor. Oh, Kimi, you're wonderful. I'm not quoting completely. And Jeanne, you're really awesome. And I'm going to end it up with saying, I have the greatest team. It changes by show, but I have people who are great thinkers and wonderful people. And I feel free to follow them. Feel free to send them friend requests, because it's not why they do this, but they are also interested in making new contact, in connecting with you and making the world a better place. And that's why we do MindPlore. And let me remind you that my YouTube channel, please subscribe, comment if you've watched the MindPlore on the channel, because we need to make it grow. And it's Giggle Fest University. Another thing, if you want to help keep this show alive, MindPlore is not mentioned on my Patreon, but it will be very soon again. Please go there. See if you want to send in a donation. It would be soon again. And who just spoke? My phone is muted now. Having said that, I am so grateful to you guys for being here today, supporting me, and making this show absolutely awesome. We will be back on Thursday with another MindPlore. And Jeanne, you don't know, we have both Cameron and Jeff there on Thursday. First time in a long time that we have everyone there. So I'm excited. We have the old crowd except for Allison, but that'll happen probably in the new year. And with that, let's wave goodbye, because we are really over now. And we will be back on Thursday for more mind exploration, which became MindPlore from a 12-year-old girl.
Mm.